We've got some catching up to do. We weren't able to do predictions for Michigan, but we'll talk about that game, the Iowa game, and predictions for USC. It's a whole lot of Gophers talk today.
You are Locked On Golden Gophers, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Gopher fans? You're listening to Locked On Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Kane Rob, host of the podcast, former collegiate football video coordinator and recruiting assistant, here to talk Golden Gophers with you each and every day of the week, Monday through Friday. And today we are diving into the predictions a little bit earlier. We're dropping these on a Thursday night, so 2 nights before game night. And that just gives you all the time to digest it, to take it in, to get over the last 2 losses, and hopefully put yourself back into hopeful territory. But will we have hopeful territory in these predictions? I think we're going to have to stick around to find out. We are joined by our weekly co-host, Tristyn Spann-Ford, to dive in. Now, Trist, the Iowa one hurt, man. The Iowa one hurt. And I didn't think it could get worse because, we were on a kind of a blowout in the second half, got our butts handed to us. And I was like, dang, man, nothing worse. And then the next week came and I was like, oh, we're just getting blown out again. And then they came back. And then they lost close. And I was like, man, could we not feel pain on every which spectrum? Can we not get the highs of a close game and the lows of a blowout? And how are you feeling after these 2 massive games?
I think were we in like the second drive when I texted you, are we in for a long game? Like, how long is this game going to be today?
Right.
And I was out by halftime. I had to take our middle child to a birthday party, and I would be lying if I didn't say I've never been more excited to go to a 5-year-old birthday party. Because at halftime I was like, what are we even doing here? I was discouraged to say the least. But I do have to ask you, I wanted to check on you because being a Packer and Gopher fan this weekend, that's a tough one. That's a tough situation to be in.
There's a lot of recovery
all around. You probably were like, bring on Monday.
Bro, the amount of hope I had on onside kicks this weekend was absolutely abysmal. Both of them shattered, torn, spat on, stomped on. Like, it was not fun. But you know what? We're on to next week. So
That's right. The best part about it is it's over.
Now, the thing about these Gopher games, both Iowa and Michigan, the Gophers only really showed up for one half. In the Iowa game, they showed up for the first half. In the Michigan game, they showed up for the second half. Now, if you put those 2 halves together in this USC game, I could be on Tristyn Spann-Ford level hype. I could be a believer. I could be ready to go. But do I think that will happen? I am very hesitant. I am very unsure. I am very woo-saw. I don't know if anybody watches Bad Boys, but I'm sitting here like woo-saw. Woo. Like, it's just something. So I need your optimism. I need your thoughts. How are you feeling heading into this matchup against USC? Another night game for the Gophers. They're coming to town here in Dinkytown. What are you looking forward to with this game?
I am looking forward to, first of all, the uniform matchup. I love the uniform matchup. It's just you don't see it. You don't see it very often unless it was a Rose Bowl a million years ago. But I'm looking forward to a complete game. You hit the nail on the head is what it has to be. We have to play 4 quarters of football. And I don't know what it is about this team that just refuses. I don't know if it's the emotional highs of getting up too high at the beginning, even with Iowa, like, hey, we're in this thing. We're good, and then they coast, or if you come out flat and now you wait until halftime to be like, hey, we should try to play football today. It has to be, you have to just come out, and I'm excited for them to just come out, hit these guys in the mouth, and play 4 quarters of football.
And if you're a USC fan tapping in, we're going to dive into predictions. Make sure you stick along. I'm sure you're going to be in the comments just chirping and chirping and chirping, but we will get into some fun predictions for this game, including our final scores. But before we get to that, I need to know, do you have any spicy takes for this weekend? Any hot takes that you think are going to happen for the Gophers versus Trojans?
Hot take is that, I already said the offensive line. Oh man, I'm nervous for this one. I'm usually not nervous. I'm usually super confident, way too confident, but I am nervous. It's such a pivotal moment in the season for us. So what are we doing here? My hot take is that the defense gets 2 takeaways.
Defense gets 2 takeaways. All right, my spicy take is going to be, and this might not sound spicy at first, but let me digest, let me dive into it, sit with it a little bit. I think Darius Taylor has his biggest rushing game of the season so far. Now, most people might look at that and be like, bro, we haven't been able to run the ball. Like, that could be like 80 yards, and that's the best game of the season. But that's not true. We did have one good rushing game in there where he had like 124, 159 rush yards. I think he's going to top that. I think he's going to get above 130 yards in this game. He could be the difference between a win or loss, and I think it comes from that offensive line you mentioned. But I think regardless of if it turns into a win or a loss, which you will hear my predictions here in a moment, I think Darius Taylor gets above 130 in the rush total.
Okay.
Hey, we call them spicy takes for a reason.
I like it. I hope it happens. The offensive line has got me nervous.
Yes, I feel that. All right, the last 2 things before we dive into official predictions. First, how are you feeling about these next 4 games? So we got this USC game, then we go on the road to UCLA. After that, we've got the home game versus Maryland, and then finally we go on the road at Illinois. Now, Illinois is ranked, I believe, still right now. If they aren't, they were the last 2 weeks, and USC is also ranked. I believe they're 12th in the country right now. UCLA, I see that as a game we could maybe win. Maryland feels like a game we could possibly win, even though their quarterback has like 1,400 passing yards and he's moving the ball too. Those 2 feel like you have to win the games if you want to have any shot at a bowl game. How are you feeling at those 4?
I 100% agree. That's exactly what I was saying, is that this game is such a big pivotal moment of, being 3-3 is a lot different than being 2-4. And so it's really going to decide. I'm confident against UCLA. I don't think they're world beaters. I don't think USC's world beaters. I feel like we definitely can. We have the ability to win that game. But going into Illinois, that's going to be a battle. That one's going to be a dogfight, a good Big Ten dogfight. So these are such important games because they're so winnable. But as we know about the Gophers, we love to lose winnable games.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at these 4 games, I think if the Gophers don't walk away with 3 wins in this 4-game stretch, you will not make a bowl game. And that's tough to say. There is other ways to get there. Maybe if you win 2, you can still get there. But I think overall you have to take 3 of these wins in order to get to a bowl game. Because right now you're sitting at, 2 wins on the season right now? Yes, 2 wins on the season. So if you take 3, that gets you to 5. And you still have to play Rutgers on the road, Penn State at home, and then Wisconsin on the road. And I know Wisconsin hasn't looked too pretty in this season either. Both Minnesota and Wisconsin are struggling pretty bad, but it's a road game. That's going to be tough. And you know what? Like, do you want to put your entire hope on a bowl game, on a Wisconsin versus Minnesota matchup once again? I mean, it already hurts enough to try and fight, and if you lose the Axe. But if you lose the Axe and you don't qualify for a bowl game, it just stings a whole lot more. I don't know if I want all the pressure on that game, so you have to walk away with at least 3 of these next 4, in my opinion.
I 100% agree. I mean, if this was, even just a few years ago, looking at these next 2 games, you'd be like, okay, you chalk them both up as losses, but UCLA this year is definitely beatable, and USC we can do something if we put 2 halves of football together. And if we come back with 3 wins in these next 3, going into those last 4 Big Ten games are going to be a lot easier, a lot less stressful.
Right. All right. Sit with me on this. Brett Bielema has been whooping down on PJ Fleck in just the dumbest ways, like close wins, big wins. Like, we can't beat Brett Bielema for some reason at Illinois. Maybe this is the year. We've been taking the L's in the years we're supposed to beat him. So now in the year where we're not supposed to beat him, maybe we get that. We'll find out. We'll talk about that when we get to that week. But overall, that's going to wrap up our talk predictions. It's time to get into the nitty gritty. It's time to get into the fun of it all. We're talking predictions coming up next. First, I got to talk to you about our friends over at FanDuel, because right now FanDuel is offering one heck of a deal, and they're offering $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. All you got to do is put a $5 bet down. It doesn't matter if you lose. It does not matter if you win. Now, if you win, you get extra money because you won that and you get your $200 in bonus bets. But if you lose, you still get to feel good about yourself because you got $200 in bonus bets coming to your account. So overall, you should definitely check out America's #1 sportsbook in FanDuel. Now, I pulled up the FanDuel odds on my second screen over here. And when I'm looking at it, the Gophers earlier this week were underdogs by 9.5 points. Now, that line has moved towards the Gophers by 1 point, 8.5 points now. And now it's not drastic. It's not dramatic or anything like that. But it does show that people are thinking Minnesota can keep this one a little bit closer than a double-digit score game. So overall, it's an interesting line. I think the Gophers can cover, but you should take your shot at FanDuel. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Gophers fans, we are diving into the predictions. Now, I'm going to kick it off. We dive into a lot of Gopher stats, but I want to dive in right away with USC and their passing stats. Now, the Gophers have the #1 ranked defense in the pass defense in the entire country. So that's awesome to look at. It's cool to see Minnesota at the top of the leaderboard when you filter to pass defense. But on the flip side, we're taking on a very, very heavy passing team. They are 12th in the nation in passing offense. They've got a quarterback who has passed for over 100 yards to 7 different pass catching options on this USC team, and they've only played 4 games on the season so far. That's right. 7 players have over 100 yards. So he is spreading this thing around. He's not just hyper targeting one guy, or there's not a star receiver that's showing out. The quarterback is literally picking defenses apart. So you're going to find strength versus strength. One of the two strengths are going to have to crumble. So how are you feeling with this one? I've set the line, or we don't have a line on this one. I need to know how many USC passing yards you think the Gophers allow in this matchup.
It's tough. I think they're going to dink and dunk, but I think just because of the sheer volume and the amount of that they pass the ball, that it's going to be easier for them to get the yards up. I'm going to set, we don't have a line. It's easier for me to go higher or lower. I'm going to say 190.
Now, I want to clarify. I'm talking about USC passing yards, not Gophers passing yards. So do you think that the USC
So
Trojans,
I think they're
how much do you think our defense will give up is what I'm kind of saying.
Okay. So, man, I don't want to be pessimistic. I'm trying not to be, but I got to be realistic. 250.
250. All right.
250.
All right. You're not going to want to hear my number. I typed my number before we got on this show. My number, I think USC is going to throw for 385 yards in this matchup. It's going to be tough. It's above the line on underdog. We'll get to that line in a little bit, but I do think that they're going to find some success through the air. But will they score? That's the big question. That's the big difference in this one. Now, flip side, we're talking about the Gophers, specifically Dragan Kesich. I want to know, do you think he makes a field goal of over 50 yards in this matchup? Yes or no?
I think yes, only because I do see us getting in a situation, especially early in the game, where we kind of drive the ball and get to that midfield area, and PJ is going to be like, we got to take the points. We got to get the points where we can get them. So I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, I'm going to go yes as well, because I think that we've seen Dragan kick a 50-yard attempt in almost every game of the season, I think, so far. Now, he hasn't made every single one of them, but I do think we'll see it. So that gives me, a 50-50 odds on this one. So I'm going to take the yes because he missed it last week, I think. So let's go with he'll make it up this week and he'll get the make. Now, if you're watching over on YouTube, you will see on the bottom, we've got our prediction scoreboard going. It's been a little funky the last 2 weeks because Iowa, we both just really kind of crapped the bed when it came to guessing those, but I ended up pulling it out by 1 point. And then for Michigan, we didn't have a show. So it's like, how could we give points? But I gave it to Trist because, look, here was the mental math I did on this one. I was like, look, I was going to pick Minnesota to lose this game. So I guess that plays in my favor, but I was going to pick them to lose big. Whereas you probably would have picked Minnesota to win close, which would have kept your score probably pretty close to where the Michigan one was. So you probably would have won that and I would have lost. So I think overall you would have won. So I gave you the benefit of the doubt there. So this week is for you to try and tie it up.
I need that.
You got to get these right. So you got
I got to lock in.
Through here. Now we're going to go on to who leads the Gophers in tackles this week.
That will be our boy. Oh, I always second guess myself. I literally look at everything and I'm like, I know what I want. And now I'm second. Maverick. It's going to be Maverick.
I was going to say, you got to go with the gut.
I gotta. I always second guess myself.
All right. I'm going to lock it in with Cody Lindenberger. No, I'm not. I'm going to say Jack Henderson. I'm going to say Jack Henderson because I know USC is going to throw the ball a lot, which means our DBs are going to be in coverage a lot, which means Jack Henderson may be near the ball a lot, which means he should get some more tackles. That's too many mental hoops to jump through, but if I can reason it, then I'm going to do it. Now, next question is, how many turnovers does Minnesota force in this game? And bonus points, you could put who gets them if you want as well.
Oh, that one's going to be tough, but I do think we get 2. I'm going to say, like we talked about, they throw the ball a lot, but guess what? That means there's a lot of opportunities for interceptions. So I'm going to say we get 2 takeaways. Give me one for Cody Lindenberg, just in case, and Justin Wally.
Ooh, and we don't even know if Justin Wally's going to be back, but Tristyn is speaking it into existence.
Here we are again.
He's ready. Yep. He's ready for it. All right, I'm going to go with 1 turnover. Now, USC and Miller Moss has been very efficient with the football. 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions so far through 4 games. So he's averaging, what, a half of an interception per game so far? So I think this game needs to be that half. He'll throw 1 interception. It'll be to the Gophers, obviously. And I think it's going to be to Kerry Brown, who adds to his interception total on the season. All right, we're going to flip to who scores the first touchdown for the Gophers before we dive into offensive player of the game, defensive player of the game, and then what everybody is waiting for, those final score predictions. So who do you got for who scores the first touchdown? We'll do 2 picks each.
All right, I'm going to give it to the big fella. Jameson Gears, first touchdown.
Ooh.
Book it, people. Book it.
I was almost ready to go for that. I wasn't going to do it with my first pick, but if you want to go for it, you know, I'm happy.
That's a huge dub.
Thankful to take Darius Taylor with that first
I'm
pick.
just saying, that's a huge dub. I've been thinking about that one all week. I'm not going to lie. That'll be electric for me.
All right, who do you got for the second pick?
Second pick, give me D-Jack.
All right, I'm going with the true wide receiver 2 of the Golden Gophers right now, Elijah Spencer. He has been finding the holes in the zones, and I think he's going to find a way to get into the end zone in this one. All right, so we're going to go offensive player of the game, defensive player of the game. I'm going to lead with the offensive player. You can lead with defensive player. So my pick for offensive player of the game, I already told you, I think he's going over $130. I got Darius Taylor going ham on the USC Trojans. USC is 78th in the country in rush defense so far. Now, they've played some gnarly running backs. Not really. They've played some gnarly rushing teams, not running backs. We've played some gnarly running backs. So I think, like, overall, if anybody can do it, Darius Taylor can attack this line and get back on track. So I got DT as my offensive player of the game. How about you?
I like that. I'm going to go ahead and go with Max then. Let's see if he can sling that thing.
Mad Max throwing the ball around the field. All right, defensive player of the game, you get to lead this one off.
I'm going to go back-to-back with Maverick Baranowski again. I think he's going to be flying around, get into the ball.
All right, then I am going to go. I'm going to leave my player of the week from last week, or I guess it was the Iowa week, but we can say it was last week too, since we didn't do him. Ethan Robinson. I think he's going to ball out. I think he could be the player to get the interception. I know I said Kerry Brown, but Ethan Robinson has been on a hot streak for this Gophers team, and I think he keeps on showing up, especially if Justin Wally isn't playing. So I'm going to go Ethan Robinson as my defensive player of the week. Now it's time, folks. It's time for those final scores. What are you thinking in this one, Tristyn? Have you talked yourself back into it? How big of a win are you talking about? What is your final score prediction?
I just can't get myself to ever predict a score where I think the Gophers are going to lose. I don't care if that makes me a homer. I just can't do it. I'm sorry. But I do think it'll be a similar game, similar score to last week, but flip-flopped. So I'm going Gophers 27, USC 24.
Man, again, another thing where I have typed my scoring before we have done it before, and we don't converse on these. A little bit of behind the scenes, behind the curtain for the folks at home. We don't converse on these. We just kind of go with the flow and jump into it right on the show. My score for this game is 28-24.
Let's go.
In favor of USC.
Boom.
I've got USC winning this one against the Gophers. I don't like saying it. Hopefully, maybe I can undo the jinxes we've been putting on the Gophers this season. Maybe the Gophers will shut me up, put me in my place, and I will happily, you hear me, PJ Fleck, happily accept it if you can bring home a dub against USC.
Maybe we just need to do a show of just talking bad about the Gophers. Just one whole show, just trash talking. Like they're garbage
on the roster and just list the flaw, list why they are doing terribly, and then all of them will just hate play. They'll just beat on the other team because of us.
And that's our win.
Yes. All right, so we're going to wrap up today's show talking about some underdog lines. We're going to try and help make you some money with this specific game on underdog. We're also going to talk about the biggest concerns we have in this game and the biggest confidence we have in this game. And finally, an unsung hero. So stay tapped in, be ready. We're coming back at you real soon, coming up next. All right, Gophers fans, cue the Chance the Rapper, and we back, and we back, and we back, and we back. But we ready to jump in here and talk some underdog lines. So I pulled up underdog. I went and saw this Gophers versus USC matchup, and we're just going to go over, under, try to make the folks some money. Maybe I'll throw 5 down and see if we can make some money here. But first line, Max Brosmer, over under 200.5 yards. So do you think he'll get above 200 passing yards or 200 and below for the under?
I will take this as my under, and I think it'll go just under because I think we're going to run the ball. We're going to ground and pound today or tomorrow.
You did say earlier you were thinking you were talking about the Gophers, and you said 190, so that checks out. You're staying true. You're staying consistent.
I'm trying so hard to be realistic.
I am also going to take the under because I think Darius Taylor is going to have a day. I also put the USC Trojans quarterback on here, whose line is 285.5. So Trist, you said 250, so I'm going to guess you're going to take the under here. I said 385, so I'm going to take the over, but that's the line to keep an eye on. I think that shows a little bit of love to this Gophers defense, because I believe, I can look it up as we keep going, but I believe Miller Moss has been kind of slinging the thing around the yard. So if that's the case, that could be maybe his lowest total so far in the season if they keep him to 285.
Best passing defense he's seen this season.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean,
checks out.
That could be real nice. It could be real smooth, but we'll find out. I'll check on that line. But the next line overall for over-unders, Darius Taylor, underdog has him at 77.5 rushing yards. What do you got for me?
I don't know what it is, but I just can't. I know it hasn't been the same season for him, but I can't not take the over still. Because especially if I'm gambling on it, I'm not going to hit that under and then be sitting there when Darius Taylor has 100 yards in the second quarter.
Don't get it. No.
Yeah. Like I just couldn't see myself doing that. And 77 yards, like you said, I think he's going to move the ball. They're going to give it to him. They fed him a lot more as far as like the ratio of backs that got the ball, a lot more last week. So I like it.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over. You already heard me kind of say my prediction for him. Yep. I did pull up Miller Moss's passing numbers so far: 308 yards against Wisconsin, 378 yards against LSU, 283 against Michigan, and 229 against Utah State. So 229 is his low so far. 285, that is like, he's almost been over on every week except for Utah State. I think that line is a really good line. I said 385. That would be his best passing total so far this year. So maybe I want to walk that one back, but it's too late. I put it on the record. Yep. I put it out there.
I need this win.
If that happens, I'm going to be very sad because we're supposedly the number 1 pass defense in the country, but we're going to find out one way or another. Now, there's 3 more lines for underdog. First, we're going to fly through these. Jacoby Lane, the wide receiver for USC. He leads the team in receptions, leads them in receiving yards, leads them in touchdowns. They have his line set at 51.5 yards. What are you taking, the over or the under?
Ooh, that's a good line. I think they throw the ball so much that I think it's going to be over. but just barely over. And that doesn't mean he's going to have that many touchdowns. So I'm going to be over.
I'm going to take the over too, but only because I don't think the Gophers have a cornerback that matches up with him physically, which could be a long day for the Gophers. He's 6'4", 200 pounds. And I don't think, I mean, Rylan Kelly might be up there with him as far as like size. I think Rylan's like 6'3", maybe 6'2". But Rylan Kelly isn't starting for this team. Rylan Kelly's still kind of fighting for snaps in general. So you're talking about Ethan Robinson. I think he's 6 foot. You're talking about Zaquan Bryan. I think he's close to 6 foot. Justin Wally isn't a huge cornerback either. So they're going to have to play clean and concise against him and hope that they don't get mossed. So I think 52 yards is going to be a possibility for him. I'll take the over. Kicks for Dragan Kesich. Field goals made over under 1.5.
I still like the over here. I don't know. I foresee us like I explained before. A couple of drives are going to stall out. I just don't know. Do you think PJ is going to be clock manager PJ after Michigan? Like, is he going to go back to not go back necessarily revert, but do you remember like 2 years ago we played Ohio State and you could blatantly see that he was just like, hey, as long as Ohio State doesn't have the ball in their hands, they can't score the ball. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of what I'm getting that feeling for some reason. So
I think if you had asked me that before we played this Michigan game, I'd have been 100% in agreement with you. Now, seeing how they responded in the second half of the Michigan game, it's not to say that he will do that every week, but what I will say is that he treats Max Brosmer a lot different than he treated Ethan and a lot different than he treated Tanner over the back half. I feel like he has a ton of just like, look, dude, I believe in you and like prove me right sort of thing right now. So I think that they're going to try to put up points. I think they're going to try to score. And so I actually took the under on Dragan's 1.5. I think Dragan will get one. I think it could be that 50-yarder, just needing to take a shot because it was like 4th down and long. But I think overall, they're going to take shots at the end zone, try to get the crowd back on their side, try to get a win back on the win column, and hopefully head on to California against USC LA with a win. And you can't do that without scoring touchdowns.
Yeah, I guess that does make sense. I kind of, that logic is a lot more sound than I was thinking.
It all sounds smart, right? It sounds logical. And then you watch the game and you're like, oh, I was an idiot. I didn't get any of these right because PJ just ran the ball the whole time. Like,
they're long run.
All right, the final over under, we got Daniel Jackson over under 58.5 receiving yards.
I took the under. That's plenty of room. I'm going to go over. That's, if he gets 60 of them, that's plenty of yards to share to keep me under what I said. So,
okay, I went and typed under just to contradict you, but I erased it and put over because, look, Daniel Jackson found a good connection with Max Brosmer last week. He had 112 yards on 9 receptions. I don't think that's just going to vanish the next week. I think they're going to keep on building on that. So 60, yeah, I'll take that. Yeah. All right, so let's dive into the final 3 questions. What is your biggest worry in this Gophers versus USC matchup as we head into the Saturday night game?
We talked about it before, and I feel like everyone has been talking about it. Play a consistent game. We've said this a million times. You got to play 4 quarters, like beginning to end. You go out, punch them in the mouth, and keep punching them in the mouth until the end of the game. Because it's the only way we're going to even be able to compete anywhere against any team. So that's it. Consistency.
I'm with you. I actually have a different one. It's way different. This is the thing that is kind of keeping me up at night with this Gophers game. I'm not going to lie to you, and it's the most nervous thing I am for this game. I am worried that this number 1 pass defense is not because the Gophers are the number 1 pass defense, but more so because we haven't played a real quarterback yet. Now, the one exception is Nevada's quarterback, Brendan Lewis, had been one of the most efficient, one of the most high yardage quarterbacks heading into that matchup with the Gophers, and they shut him down. They made him look foolish. They threw in 3 interceptions. So that gives me hope. That gives me belief. But aside from that, Max Johnson, who looked terrible at North Carolina, gets hurt. Then they put in their backup, who is no longer even their starter as Max Johnson's out. They went to the 3rd string now at North Carolina. Like, that's how bad that quarterback room is right now. Alex Orji in Michigan, threw for what, 30 yards
Yeah.
against USC, threw for like 40 yards versus Minnesota.
He's got like 100 yards on the season.
Right. So I'm just like, he's obviously not a very good quarterback. And then you've got who else do we play? Iowa. And Cade McNamara is a player that people were talking about this offseason who was playing in a preseason game and had like 80 yards on 40 completion with 3 interceptions to his own defense. So it's just like none of these quarterbacks have been world beaters. Now we're getting a real world beater in Miller Moss, but more so in Lincoln Riley, who has had, these are his last quarterbacks, Tristyn. His last quarterbacks, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, Caleb Williams, and Spencer Rattler. You know where all of those guys are? They are all in the NFL. Not one of them is not in the NFL right now.
Oh,
so it's just like,
he is an offensive guru. This will be a big test for the Gophers this week.
So like if the Gophers come out and they're still a top 10 passing defense after playing USC, look, I'm on the bandwagon. I will hype this pass defense for the rest of the season. I don't even care if they have an off game somewhere else. If they shut down or really slow down this USC team, I'm all in. But I'm really nervous that it's been more so that we've played bad passing offenses.
Yeah, I guess I've never broken it down in my brain that way, and that is very tough. Very, very tough.
All right, well, to pick ourselves back up a little bit, what gives you confidence in this game?
That would be, mine are always mentality, but I think the run game gives me confidence. Like, I feel like no matter what situation we're in, leaning on the run game for Minnesota can always keep us in the fight. I know this year hasn't necessarily always been the case, but I think we can go back to the roots if we ever need to and, get the ball in a running back's hand.
Yeah, I think this is the game where maybe we can turn it around. I think this is the game where maybe we can build the confidence back up, get the offensive line some swagger back. I mean, get them big boys right. I mean, we used to call the team I would coach, we would call the big boys the big sexies. Like, you got to go out there and play with that big sexy energy and out there plowing dudes into the ground and showing like, look, the running back might look good, but he looks good because of me. So it's like, hopefully those boys can get right this week. And I think this is the one where Darius Taylor might have some extra room to break a couple big ones. All right, the final question to wrap this thing up: who will be the unsung hero for the Gophers in this game?
That leads me to the defensive line. I think the defensive line, if they can get pressure, because Miller Moss he's gonna have passing yards, he's gonna throw the ball, but if they can get pressure and at least make him uncomfortable in the pocket, it will make it so much easier for those D-backs, for our corners. That's my unsung hero of the game, is that they get enough pressure to make him uncomfortable and hopefully slow down that offense.
All right, for mine, I'm going with Coy Parrish. I'm doubling down. I said it for the Iowa game. I said it kind of for the troll and the punt returns and everything like that. It didn't play out, but it did play out the next week versus Michigan, where he almost got this team back into the game with a 61-yard punt return. And look, I don't know if you've seen it like I have, but watching Coy Parrish play football, the dude has that it factor about him. He's got that swagger about him, and he's just like, when he catches a punt, I'm like, oh, he's gonna house this. Like,
how big is he?
Aura around him, he's ready for it. Like, it's just,
how big is he? When I saw him, I was like, he is so much bigger than I thought he would. Like, I don't know why. Maybe it's because he's young, because he's a true freshman. So I don't know if it's just because he's young. But when I saw him, I was like,
6'1", 200. So I mean, it's not like he's small. And that was before he got into the strength program. He joined the team in June, so I'm sure he's put on some weight with that too. But no, he is definitely a healthy looking football player.
Yeah,
super athletic. And like PJ Fleck said in one of the pressers this week that when he went and watched Coy Parrish in high school, there was a game where Coy Parrish literally was punt returning and he was talking to PJ on the sidelines as he was returning the ball. Like, that's the amount of confidence. And I'm pretty sure PJ said he housed that one. Now that sounds like some like mythical, like, oh, you had to be there type stuff. But like, when I watch him play, I'm like, yo, that actually might be real.
You might have said that.
That's a for real thing right there.
You got my commitment letter ready for me to sign.
Right. Do we want to put him on offense? We can get some jet sweeps going and things too.
For
like,
just use him as a gadget guy. I love that.
All right. Well, we're diving into USC this week. Hopefully the Gophers bring home the dub, but that's going to do it for us here at Locked On Golden Gophers. We're going to be talking about UCLA next week. I might be back on the Gophers win predictions, but unfortunately not this week. And I hope I'm wrong. Prove me wrong, PJ.
Love
but that's
that.
going to do it for us. Row the boat, Sky, you Michael Gophers, as always. And please don't forget to hit subscribe.